You somehow seem to lack consideration when dealing with those superior to you. I was taken aback by my mother-in-law's sudden words. Lately, she has been making comments that seem to test me. Considering our relationship, I would think I hold a special place in your heart, even more than your own mother. Are you content just helping with household chores? I could sense an expectation or a test of some sort behind her words, and the initial kindness in her face had faded. She continued, "Also, how about moving your room to the storage space under the stairs? I'd appreciate it if you spent your time quietly there. If you're not pleased, you're welcome to find another place to live." She smiled as she said this. Her smile seemed to contain a hint of superiority. "My name is Nicole. I met Daniel at my part-time job during my student years, and we quickly became close. After dating for 5 years, we decided to marry. Daniel and I worked at the same manufacturing company, and our days were busy. However, this business strengthened our bond. Every evening, we returned home on the last train, and no matter how tired Daniel was, he waited for me at the station. Whenever he saw me, he always greeted me with a bright smile. Daniel genuinely cares for me and makes me forget my daily fatigue. I feel happiness in our daily life. Both of my parents have passed away. They left behind a considerable inheritance. We have been living without using that inheritance as we plan to save it for our future needs." One day, on our way home, Daniel asked, "Nicole, my parents want to visit tomorrow. Is that all right?" I felt a twinge of nervousness but replied with a smile, "Of course, they're always welcome." My parents-in-laws, who lived nearby, occasionally visited our house. We had a close relationship and mutual trust. They treated me like their own daughter, and I cherished them as my real family. One day, when they visited, my mother-in-law Camilla suggested, "Nicole, Daniel, this house is getting old, and if you don't mind, why don't we live together? I think the day when we'll have grandchildren is coming soon, and I think I can help with household chores." My father-in-law Edgar also agreed. Edgar, who was always cheerful and friendly, had recently shown signs of health problems. Daniel and I had become increasingly concerned about this change, and we would often exchange worried words about it. Living together could also deepen our family bond. Moreover, I thought that our home would become livelier and there would be more things to look forward to in life. That proposal sounds wonderful to me. However, this house might become a bit cramped. "Let's discuss how we can all comfortably live together in more detail," I replied. Daniel nodded in agreement. Camilla added with a smile, "Nicole, you have inheritance from your parents, right? How about using it to build a wonderful house?" I was taken aback, as I hadn't mentioned the inheritance to her. I had always thought it wasn't something to share in detail with others. So, when my mother-in-law brought up the topic of inheritance, I was a bit taken aback. Moreover, I felt a slight discomfort when she mentioned how she intended to use the inheritance. However, even though I had hesitated to spend a large amount of money until now, I began to think that perhaps it was finally the right time to do so. Considering the enthusiastic faces of Daniel and my parents-in-laws, I thought my parents would have supported this idea. In that case, how about building the best house together? I proposed enthusiastically. We decided to build a new two-family home. The construction went smoothly, and our new life together began. Our home was filled with laughter and warmth. I felt happiness in this kind of life. When I came home tired from work at night, Camilla would have warm food ready and wait for me. My father-in-law would join in, and we'd enjoy drinking together late into the night more often. Every day felt special, and I truly thought I made the right choice living together in this house. But life is unpredictable. My father-in-law's health began to decline gradually. While it wasn't life-threatening, he decided on his own to move into a nursing home because he didn't want to be a burden to us. Although it wasn't that far away in terms of distance, when we could no longer hear his cheerful voice at home, we inevitably felt a sense of loneliness. Camilla and I made it a point to visit him frequently. In the midst of this, Daniel had to go overseas for work. He said, "It's only for a little while. It might be refreshing for you to spend some time alone with Mom. I'm sure she's relying on you too. I'll be back soon." Behind those words, I could feel his thoughtfulness. Indeed, the days spent alone with Camilla were refreshing and had their own kind of fun. However, such days didn't last long. One day, Camilla suddenly came up with a massive shopping list. I was surprised and asked, "Wait, are you going to buy all of this? What are you planning?" Camilla responded with a smile, "I've decided to have a little party with some neighborhood friends today. Can you help?" I readily agreed and joined in with the preparations. After shopping for the requested items and returning home, Camilla asked me further, "Can you please help with the cooking?" It seemed like a lot of work, but I thought that if we worked together, we would have a good time, so I agreed to help. Eventually, we finished preparing for the guests, and they started to arrive one after another. Then Camilla said, "Thank you. We'll take it from here," and started the party. Feeling out of place, I reluctantly decided to spend some time outside. When I returned home after a while, the party hadn't been cleaned up yet, and Camilla was leisurely enjoying the TV. Seeing this, I became a little irritated and asked, "Can you help with the cleanup?" To my surprise, Camilla, who had always been kind, responded sternly, "I'm not your real mother. Clean up without complaining. It's audacious of you to ask, considering your position as a daughter-in-law." I couldn't hide my shock. I had been living what felt like a dream, and I was astounded by Camilla's sudden change in attitude. Her warm smile, which I had grown accustomed to, vanished in an instant, replaced by the coldness of her words. "I've been kind to you only because Daniel likes you. He values you more than me, which I didn't particularly appreciate. I knew about the inheritance matter, and I've always pretended to be the ideal mother-in-law. I had planned to continue this facade for decades, but fortunately, the circumstances changed sooner than expected, so I feel relieved." Hearing Camilla's words, I was stunned, barely managing to remain standing. "You must be joking, right?" To my query, she smiled and replied, "Why would I be joking? Even after you married Daniel, I never considered you as a real family member. Thank you for providing this wonderful house. But from now on, you will respect my opinions. If you can't, then please leave. This house belongs to us. Your room will be used as a guest room, and you can sleep in the storage space under the stairs. Space-wise, it shouldn't be a problem for you to turn over comfortably." That night, cleaning up after the party with tears streaming down my face was the hardest thing I had ever done. I wondered what all her previous warmth had been about. As days went by, Camilla's changed behavior significantly increased my stress. Despite that, I took on more and more household responsibilities to meet her expectations. No matter how busy I was, Camilla never helped. Returning home late from work, I'd find the remnants of her tea parties with her friends. Cleaning up after these gatherings became my established duty. While tidying up, time would fly, and considering the breakfast preparations for the next morning, I had to cut down on sleep. Yet, I persisted with household chores. Receiving complaints on the rare days I couldn't prepare breakfast became a routine. One day, I accidentally overheard Camilla bad-mouthing me to her friends. Hearing her mock me while laughing, I felt profound sadness and anger. Gradually, the emotional toll became unbearable, so I requested temporary leave from my job. Though I still faced verbal abuse and endless chores at home, the daytime gave me brief respite. Then, one day, after finishing my chores early and huddling in the storage space under the stairs, I heard Camilla return with someone. It was Mike, a local resident and a familiar face to me as he is one of Daniel's friends. Ever since my father-in-law had moved into a nursing home, the time Camilla and Mike spent together increased, hinting at something more than just friendship. At first, I thought they were just friends, but the special atmosphere between them and their silent exchanges hinted at something else. I had tried not to ponder what might be happening between them. From the gap in the storage under the stairs, I cautiously observed the situation. At that moment, I witnessed Camilla and Mike kissing intimately. I had suspected something was going on from their demeanor, But being confronted with this reality, I was deeply shocked. It seemed that Camilla was having an affair with him in our house. Hoping for the scene to end as soon as possible, I closed my eyes and covered my ears, waiting. Unable to bear the situation, I decided to visit Edgar at the nursing home in the following days. He had always been understanding and was a source of comfort for my heart. Before leaving the house, Camilla said, "Are you going out somewhere?" "That's perfect timing. I have friends coming over tonight, so spend your time outside." Sensing the underlying tone of her relationship with Mike, I rushed to see Edgar. Upon meeting him, he seemed to sense my pain and comforted me. I poured out my heart about Camilla and Mike's affair. He listened carefully to my story and, after I finished speaking, began to speak slowly. His words resonated deeply in my heart. "It seems you've been through a lot, but it's probably only Camilla who is blaming you unfairly. You're not alone, Nicole. I'm glad you've come to me in this tough time. Daniel must be worried about you, too. I'll handle this matter properly, so don't worry." With that, Edgar gently stood up, offering his hand, and said, "Let's go home together. Are you okay? Please don't push yourself too hard. Thank you for worrying about me. But for your sake, I can endure anything." Feeling his warmth, I walked beside him on the way back home. When we arrived at the house, I noticed that the visitors' shoes were left as they were in front of the door. They had probably assumed that I wouldn't be returning so early. Edgar, without any hesitation, went inside the house and into the room where Camilla and Mike were. Camilla looked shocked, her eyes wide. On the other hand, Mike went into complete panic, staggering as he jumped out of the window barefoot. If he was just a friend, he wouldn't be so flustered. "Camilla, I've heard a lot from Nicole. I'd like to hear your side of the story." Upon Edgar's gentle inquiry, Camilla seemed unsure of how to respond. I apologized for the affair, but Mike approached me first, so it's not entirely my fault, she finally said. Hearing her response, Edgar said, "The issue is how you treated Nicole," sighing deeply. Before Camilla could say another word, Edgar placed divorce papers on the table. "Let's resolve this properly. I want you to leave today." Camilla was in a state of panic, but it was just a one-time thing. "And yet you're handing me this. It's not fair to blame me alone. Why are we getting a divorce when you believe that girl's story?" Edgar, choosing his words carefully, replied, "I consider Nicole as my own daughter. As a parent, I can sense her emotions and thoughts very clearly. But it seems you can't see that." Camilla looked down and fell silent. "Leave this place by today. If I find you here tomorrow, I won't hesitate to call the police. Understood?" Upon hearing those words, Camilla collapsed to her knees. Afterward, on Edgar's advice, I spent the night at a nearby hotel. When I returned home the next day, Camilla was gone. I heard that Camilla now lives in a cramped, old apartment in the neighboring town. She had exhausted all her funds on expenses related to the elderly care facility and, despite her age, seemed to be working multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. A few days later, Daniel returned home. When I told him everything that had happened, he looked astonished. I had no idea such things were happening. "Thank you. I'm really glad Dad was there." After that, our lives returned to a peaceful and happy state. It might not be long before this spacious house gets a new addition to the family. How long do you plan to rely on Dad? Sean, my 19-year-old stepson, said that as he threw my book into the rainy garden. "I bet it was bought with Dad's money, right? Why do women squander others' money? It's too extravagant, so I threw it away." The book Sean threw away was an important document for my work, a valuable item imported from abroad. "If I don't have it, I'll be in trouble, Sean. Please bring it back." Even when I asked, Sean wouldn't listen. He kept making derogatory remarks about women with a nasty smile. "Can't you speak more logically? I'm not good with emotional women. If you don't like it, you're free to leave." I was trembling with anger inside. However, I understood that nothing I said would have an effect on Sean right now. The only choice I had was this. "Then, I'll leave." When I said that, Sean laughed mockingly. Is that your decision? How will a housewife survive? Well, good luck. Sean, who didn't try to understand family and judge people by mere labels, has lost his compassion. I, Mandy Thomas, decided it was time to teach this arrogant stepson a lesson. I am 38 years old and a novelist by profession. My livelihood is supported by royalties from my novels and income from stock trading. I mainly work from home, but due to the business, I cannot always do household chores, so my husband Robert takes care of them full-time. Robert and I got remarried 3 years ago, each with our own children. My son Alex is an active third grader. On the other hand, Robert's son Sean graduated from high school this year. He failed to get into any of the universities he applied to and is currently taking a gap year. Sean is originally a straightforward person, but this trait makes him easily influenced negatively. He started using social media while spending more time in his room during his gap year. There, he became close with people that disparage women, and he started making derogatory comments about women at home, too. One night, when we were happily planning a family trip, the moment Robert stood up to prepare dessert, Sean suddenly slammed his spoon on the plate. "Housewives have it easy," he said with a look of disdain. "Enjoying vacations with the husband's money. I wish I'm a woman. They don't experience the hardships of studying or society. They just go to beauty or nail salons and spend the little remaining time on household chores. It must be nice and easy." I retorted, "If you think housework is easy, you're mistaken. It requires constant attention to the family, sometimes even sacrifices." Sean replied mockingly, "So, you're saying housewives have it tough? Are you one of those who claim that a housewife's income should be $100,000? There's no superiority or inferiority between household and professional work. However, housework is often undervalued, making it more difficult for some. Enjoying 3 meals and naps, relying entirely on the husband. In our house, it's Robert who does the housework, so Sean's statement is fundamentally wrong. But more than that, his attitude was the problem. Since you haven't experienced being a housewife, you can't understand the situation. Everyone has their own circumstances. Isn't it rude to generalize and criticize without knowledge? But Sean didn't understand that. What's your point? Acting all high and mighty even though you're unemployed? Alex, sitting at the same table, looked worriedly at Sean and me. Thinking of Alex, I felt it was inappropriate to continue the conversation and change the subject. Sean snorted in dissatisfaction, but soon his eyes lit up when he saw the dessert Robert brought out, ending the discussion. Sean's attitude seemed temporary, possibly due to the pressure of studying. However, the next morning, Sean came into the dining room looking smug. As I was doing laundry, he threw an A4 paper at me, found something interesting, and printed it. Check the comments. It was a busy morning, but I glanced at it. It was from a college student's social media account. It's weird for a full-time housewife to share household chores and childcare with her husband, right? It seems marriage is just for financial support. And they say being a housewife is harder than working, followed by negative comments about women. Rants of a woman with no social experience. Enjoying lunch with the husband's money. Full-time housewives get accustomed to laziness, their thinking becomes dull, and their perspective narrows. Leaving housework to the husband despite being a full-time housewife, just like a parasite. I ignored the ridiculous comments and continued with the laundry. But Sean approached with a sneering remark. "How about it for a full-time housewife, leaving cooking to dad? Do you see him just as a provider of money for housework?" I replied calmly, "Whether a full-time housewife or working, we are all part of the family. It's normal for a family to cooperate and share chores whenever possible. Your basis for that? Just making excuses? Do women become shameless as they age?" Sean wasn't like this in high school, but now he's using unfamiliar terms to criticize his family. The influence of the internet has changed him so much. As I was surprised, Robert appeared from the kitchen with an omelet. "Here, eat up. All right, Mandy, you're having lunch at the cafe near the station today, right?" "Yes, I don't need lunch. Thank you." Hearing this exchange, Sean smirked even more. Oh, enjoying a stylish lunch at a cafe during the day? Robert, unaware of Sean's sarcasm, continued setting the table. Mandy is busy. Sean, you should eat the packed lunch quickly. You have prep school soon. Sean laughed through his nose and said to Alex, who had just woken up, as he left, I have to be careful when choosing a future wife. If I make a mistake, my life is ruined. Aren't you eating breakfast? I don't want to catch the unemployed disease by eating together. See you. After Sean left, Robert pondered. What is Sean thinking? Is it the pressure of studying? Maybe so. I couldn't tell Robert that Sean despised housewives, as I didn't want to disturb our family's peace. While having such trivial conversations, the morning hurriedly passed. In the evening, caught by a sudden rain on my way home, I was shocked. The books stored on the shelf in my study were scattered in the garden. The books were drenched in the heavy rain, and the ink was smidging. Near the discarded books, Alex was crying. Alex, what happened? While Dad was out shopping, Big brother, big brother. Suddenly, the living room's glass door opened, and Sean threw a pile of books into the garden. I was astonished. What are you doing? These are important books that are hard to get in the US. I said. Wow, if they are that valuable, they don't suit a full-time housewife, Sean continued mockingly. They were probably bought with Dad's money, right? Why do women splurge on other people's money? They're too extravagant, so I threw them away. The books Sean threw were acquired from abroad and they were essential for my work. I really need them. Please bring them back. Even when I asked, Sean wouldn't listen. He just kept smiling and looking down on women. Can't you be a bit more logical? Women are too emotional. If you're upset, you can leave anytime. I felt anger inside. However, I understood that nothing I said would affect Sean at that moment. The only choice for me was this. Then, I will leave. Sean laughed loudly in a mocking manner. Have you really decided to do that? How will a full-time housewife survive? Well, good luck. Sean, who didn't try to understand family matters and judge people by labels, has lost his compassion. I decided it was time to teach this arrogant stepson a lesson. A few days later, I moved to the countryside. It was a good location, rich in nature, yet close to schools and supermarkets. Robert and Alex moved with me. Hearing about the incident, Robert was furious and said, let Sean live alone to learn the hardships of housework. When Sean learned we were moving to the countryside, he mocked us, saying, countryside living is for losers. However, just 3 days after we moved, he called for help. I tried cooking and got burned. My shirts are all wrinkled, and ironing them only makes it worse. What should I do? Hearing Sean's almost tearful voice over the phone, Robert asked in surprise, didn't you think being a full-time housewife was easy? Then Sean started explaining unbelievable reasons. Housework has always been a woman's role, right? It's not suitable for men who work and earn outside. So, bring mom back quickly. What if I spend time on housework and fail university again? Robert replied, visibly frustrated. Just to let you know, I'm actually the one who has been a full-time homemaker. Being a man doesn't mean being bad at housework. Sean was shocked and quickly retorted, no way. You were often out. But mom was always at home, right? She said she was going out for lunch. I was the PTA representative at the elementary school and a committee member of the local children's association. I frequently went to school and the community hall. I was often called even after my term ended. Then, how about the money for living expenses? That's why mom was working at home. She's a novelist. Remember I told you when we got married? I heard, but isn't that just a hobby for housewives? It's a waste, right? Sean, do you really not know? Search the net and you'll find mom's name. She's a well-known author and a famous day trader. She has published many books. Mom was going to the cafe for meetings with her editors. Sean hurriedly searched for my name, sounding shocked. Since Sean usually read only comic books, he probably didn't know much about authors. Wait, so mom has been supporting the family, and you have been dependent on her? Robert was angered by Sean's words. Dependent is a harsh way to put it. There are good and bad ways to say things. Besides, you're already an adult, right? If I'm dependent, then you are also dependent on mom. Hurt in his pride, Sean shouted loudly. That's a joke. I refuse that. I'll stand on my own and live by myself. I don't need your support. I learned my own money and passed the exams. After hanging up, Robert sighed deeply. What is Sean planning to do for a living? Sean has savings of $10,000 from his childhood. We gave him his bank book when he graduated high school. Maybe he'll do some part-time job. Whether he's truly independent or not was unclear, but we decided to watch over him. The next call from Sean came after a while. As soon as he got on the phone, he arrogantly said, Hey, my electricity and gas are cut off. The internet isn't working and I've received a notice for a rent payment. Hurry up and pay for it. Housewives are so slow. Robert and I exchanged puzzled looks. Sean, didn't you say you were going to be independent? That you wouldn't rely on your parents anymore? Wasn't that it? Shut up. Are you saying that and then abandon your parental duties? As we delved deeper into the conversation to uncover the truth, we learned that Sean had tried investing with his $10,000. Lacking adequate knowledge, he lost everything. Then, he reluctantly started working at a deli, but couldn't fully grasp the tasks and struggled with communication. He quit in just a week. Mom doing date rating is a lie. How can a woman do such advanced stuff? The move to the countryside is just because you couldn't afford a house in the city. Faced with Sean's unchanging attitude, Robert spoke sternly. Parental duties last until a child becomes an adult. It's indeed odd to cut ties immediately after, but you mocked and refused to rely on your parents. If you want help, first admit your mistakes. At that moment, Sean replied irritably. What? It's not a mistake. Everyone on SNS says I'm a victim of my parents. Fine then. Dad, follow the women and do your best. After Sean hung up the phone, I had an idea and checked the SNS. Then, I spoke to a puzzled Robert. You know, that college students account that Sean showed us before, it's actually. Robert was surprised by my words. 3 days later, we waited at the nearest station to our new house and found Sean. How did you know I would be here? To the furiously angry Sean, I showed my smartphone. That college students account you showed me before. It's actually yours, isn't it? Sean hurriedly denied it, but I calmly continued explaining. I had felt something was off from the beginning. The posts you showed had first hour of class, but usually college students say first lecture. So I suspected it wasn't really a college student's account and looked back through the posts. Then I found there was a post from the day he threw my books in the garden, boasting about punishing a full-time housewife. But that wasn't all. Online posts about parents heartlessly abandoning me, boasting about earning a fortune in stock trading to show up my former parents, and a painful plea about electricity being cut off, which makes life difficult. All these coincided exactly with the events in our family. Do you understand the implications of your behavior online? Don't you know about internet literacy? Real-time posts easily give away your identity, I advised him. Sean tried to retort but couldn't find the words, just muttering incoherently, visibly shaken. And so, I read your account's posts and realized you were planning to secretly visit our house today. I continued quietly. Sean's post from yesterday was shocking. Tomorrow, I'll visit the merciless parents who abandoned me. They probably live in a shabby house. I'll take a photo and expose it to everyone. He posted the time he would take the train, so I knew exactly when he would arrive at our station. We won't solve anything by just standing here talking, so let's go back home and discuss, I suggested, and the three of us, Sean, Robert, and I, started walking slowly towards our house. Sean grumbled in dissatisfaction, going to a dirty and old house, but followed us nonetheless. However, as soon as we opened the grand gates of our house, Sean's mouth dropped open in astonishment. Our family, presumed to be living in a fallen and poor house, actually resided in a luxurious mansion reminiscent of a holiday resort on a vast estate. Is this really your house? Isn't this worth over $1 million? He exclaimed in surprise, to which I calmly replied, "Yes, that's right. Dad wanted to do farming in the countryside leisurely, so we chose this area with its spacious land. It's rich in greenery, the air is clear, and it's the perfect environment for my writing." Alex is also enjoying playing with his friends in nature every day. As I explained, the doors of the mansion opened and a handsome man appeared. "Madam, sir, welcome home. The bath is ready. For dessert tonight, we have prepared a special pudding à la mode," he said politely. "A butler in the house?" Sean was amazed, and I replied casually, "Yes. Managing such a vast property isn't easy, so we have a butler, a maid, and a gardener, 3 people in total," I explained. While Sean was speechless, I continued talking to the butler. "It would help if we could have the dessert first, as I have an important discussion with my son," I requested, to which the butler immediately responded, "Certainly, madam. Please, this way to the guest living room." As the butler took Sean's backpack with practiced ease, Sean hesitantly handed it over and slowly started following us. Entering the house, Sean's eyes widened in amazement at the luxurious entrance decoration, the corridor's length, and the vast, beautiful garden. Walking down the spacious corridor, we arrived at the guest room and sat quietly at a carved Gothic-style table on a luxurious Persian carpet. In that serene atmosphere, I looked at Sean and asked gently, "Do you have something you want to tell Dad and I?" Sean was silent for a moment, then exclaimed in a mix of surprise and admiration, "It's amazing living in such a grand house. Are you involved in something shady to earn money? But well, never mind. Such a big house must have spare rooms. It's fine if I live here for free, right?" At Sean's rude proposal, Robert could not hide his disappointment and held his head in his hands. "I had hoped that living alone would make you respect your mother more, but it seems that's still not the case. I'm just disappointed." Just then, the butler entered the room with a beautifully arranged pudding à la mode. Robert immediately gave instructions to the butler. "Sean is going back to the city center right away, so he won't need that dessert. Later, Alex will bring some friends over, so please serve them the dessert then." Sean objected to this sudden development, raising his voice in protest. "Wait a minute, I didn't say I was going back." However, Robert did not listen to him and quietly stood up, looking out the window. As Sean trembled with anger, Robert looked him in the eyes and declared in a calm yet firm voice, "There's no place in this house for someone who lacks respect for their mother. Leave now." In response, Sean's anger only grew. "Unbelievable. Can't believe you think so little of your own son," he exclaimed loudly. Robert's face turned to one of sorrow, and he seemed to feel a deep sense of disappointment. "If that's all you can think, then that's fine. It's impossible for me to convince someone as unimaginative as you. Now, please leave." Sean stood up, holding back tears, and blurted out, "I will never come back here," before leaving the room hurriedly. I quickly followed him, calling out, "Sean, wait a minute." I caught up to him, who had stopped and turned around, and hurriedly handed him an envelope, saying, "Dad said that, but take this with you. Use it wisely." Seeing the contents of the envelope, Sean was surprised to find more living expenses than he had expected for the upcoming spring. "With this, manage your necessary payments yourself. The tuition for your prep school will be automatically paid from my bank account, so don't worry about it. I know exams are tough, but do your best and take care of your health," I said, and Sean nodded several times in gratitude before slowly leaving the house. After that day, there was no contact from Sean, and we had no way of knowing about his future movements. We continued to hope for his safety and success. That SNS account, I noticed, had been deleted. Robert continued to maintain a stern attitude towards Sean, but as a parent, his concern never disappeared, and he occasionally checked on him secretly. Sean seemed to be struggling with his first experience of housework, but was diligently attending prep school and studying for his exams. Months later, Robert, Alex, and I stood again at the nearest station. Sean had contacted us the night before, saying he had something important to talk about. When Sean appeared, his expression was clear and bright, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his heart. Once we were in the guest room, Sean first apologized deeply. "I'm really sorry for what happened. I was awful, throwing those books and saying terrible things. I even scared Alex, sorry." Robert and I exchanged glances and smiled at each other. "You were really terrible. It was quite a painful situation. Don't be so harsh now," I replied, lightening the mood. Then Sean began an important announcement, looking back and forth between us. "Actually, I've been accepted into my first choice university, T University. About that, can I ask for financial support for my tuition?" Hearing this, we all expressed our joy. "That's wonderful. Congratulations. You've worked hard." "That's my son. Brother, that's amazing." Everyone makes mistakes, but what matters is how we move on from them. It seems we have learned this from Sean. Though Sean once wandered off the path, he is now walking the right way towards a bright future. I am Christina, 32 years old. I've been with Steve for 6 years already, and I love him dearly. I had always wanted to marry him and had proposed to him multiple times, but each time I was gently turned down. However, just recently, he finally accepted my 5th proposal. Nowadays, we are busy preparing for our wedding, thinking about wedding plans, and choosing outfits. But even amidst this busyness, every day is fun, and I find myself humming songs without even realizing it. Then one day, while feeling elated, a prenuptial agreement was placed in front of me. Steve had said that this contract was necessary as a condition for marriage. The content of the agreement was, "What belongs to each of us before marriage stays as it is. We won't interfere with what the other inherits in the future. If the family situation changes, we'll update this document." I asked him while signing the document, "Steve, are you really concerned about this?" He replied, "Well, it's just for peace of mind, just in case. I think it's important for both of us." I was a bit puzzled as to why he was so insistent on this agreement, but I was more excited about the days ahead with him. However, a little incident was waiting. Steve has 2 somewhat eccentric older brothers. Before our wedding, when I met them, Steve advised, "Don't take what those 2 say at face value. They're a bit odd. Just take it lightly." In his words, my future parents-in-laws gave a slight, ambiguous smile. I hadn't seen them for a while, so I had almost forgotten about them. Then one day, while Steve was at work, I got an unexpected call from an unknown number. "You like fish, don't you, Chrissy?" I was completely taken aback by this sudden call from the brother-in-law I had only met once. "What? Who is this?" I recognized Chrissy as my nickname, but who was it? I was sure it wasn't a complete stranger since they called our home phone. As I was trying to figure it out, a voice came from the other end of the line. "Haha, you don't recognize me? I'm Steve's brother, your new elder brother." "What? Brother-in-law? Which one of?" "Steve has 2 brothers, but whose voice was this?" "It's been a while. What happened?" I asked, still somewhat confused. He said, "Actually, I went fishing today and caught a ton of salmon. I can't bring them all, but is it okay if I bring a few? Steve should love them with lemon." My heart raced with excitement at his words. I could make a dish that Steve loves. That's great news. Steve's working today, but I think he'll be really happy if he comes home to a delicious meal. I hung up the phone and hurried to the kitchen. "I have lemon and seasoning. All right, let's make a delicious dish." As I was prepping the ingredients in high spirits, the doorbell rang. It must be my brother-in-law. When I checked the monitor, I recognized the face. Steve has 2 brothers, and it was the younger of the 2 who had arrived. When I opened the door, he seemed a bit flustered. "Sorry, can I use the bathroom? Also, could you cover the taxi fare?" Saying this, he dashed into the house. "Huh? Oh, okay," I replied as I handed money to the taxi driver. When he came out of the bathroom, he took a deep breath of relief. "Thanks for that. You saved me. Also, could you lend me a bit of money?" he asked with a smile, extending his hand. "Huh? Money? For what?" I looked at him, slightly puzzled, and he chuckled. "The fish isn't free. How about $50? He casually mentioned. What? I couldn't help but let out a surprised exclamation, nearly dropping my wallet. I had assumed that the fish was just a shared treat. Of course, I felt bad taking it for free and had planned to thank him with a slightly expensive snack. But $50? That was unexpected. Looking at my brother-in-law's expression, it seemed like this price was the norm for him. He had come all the way from far off to give it to me, and the fish was fresh. I didn't want to say anything that would ruin the mood. Reluctantly, with a slightly troubled look, I took $50 from my wallet and handed it to him. Thanks. The fish is in the cooler. Oh, and I'm leaving the fishing gear here too. I've asked Steve to bring it home later. See you. With that, he quickly left. Huh, you're leaving already? Wait, Kevin. Looking at the cooler and gear left at the entrance, I exclaimed in surprise. But he, waving a $50 bill, was gone in a flash. This is strange. Leaving the gear here. We don't have space for it. Oh, I forgot about the taxi fare. I remembered the taxi fare I had fronted for him and was deep in thought with a troubled face. I feel awkward asking Steve to carry this. And about the taxi fare. How do I bring it up? What surprised me even more was the contents of the cooler. Gathering my composure, I intended to prepare a dish. When I opened it, I exclaimed, "What? What's this?" On top of a lot of ice was a small salmon, and there was only one. I was so shocked that I was paralyzed. Wait, what's this? Unable to believe it, I was lost for words. From the way my brother-in-law talked, I had been looking forward to getting a lot of fish. I had cut some lemon in excitement. Seeing the lemon I had cut with excitement, all I could do was sigh. Several months later, I visited a small cafe nearby. I have something to discuss with you, but don't tell my younger brother. The hasty call was from my husband's elder brother. His tone gave off an urgent vibe. Listen, there's something important I have to discuss, but I can't tell my brother or my parents. He emphasized that repeatedly. Although a bit anxious, the designated cafe had a cozy and bright atmosphere, and it was daytime, so I thought it'd be fine. Christina, over here. As soon as I opened the door, he called out loudly. Embarrassed by the stares from other customers, I quickly walked to his table, looking down. Look, you're blushing. Christina, you're really cute. Grinning, my brother-in-law made my cheeks turn even redder. Please, can you be a bit quieter? When I whispered this, he waved his hand saying, okay. Then, turning to the woman seated next to him, he introduced me. This is my new girlfriend. A stylishly dressed, beautiful woman stood up and looked at me. Just as I was about to greet her, she shouted in a low voice, "What's this about?" And the next moment, I felt a slap on my cheek. Stunned, I couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Did a stranger just slap me? Why? The furious woman in front of me shouted, "This is your new girlfriend? She's so annoying," and stormed out of the cafe. Wait, James, what kind of prank is this? My cheek hurts a bit. I was so shocked that my throat went dry. But my brother-in-law just casually said, "Actually, I had a fight with my girlfriend. I thought of replacing you as my new girlfriend and ending the relationship. Thanks to that, it's all over now," and he laughed. You're kidding, right? I never thought this would happen. I started to feel irritated by his nonchalant attitude. He waved his hand and said, "Well, these things happen. It's not a big deal. But this is the first time something like this has happened to me. How can I stay calm?" I raised my voice. Honestly, I was overwhelmed with anger, shock, and embarrassment. Then my brother-in-law said, "Don't be so mad. It's just a small thing." Everyone's surprised, but was it that shocking? Looking around, everyone was stealing glances at me. Feeling the gazes of the other customers, my cheeks burned with embarrassment. Out of embarrassment, I looked down. Taking the opportunity, my brother-in-law stood up with a smile and said, "See you later. Say hi to my brother for me," and left the store. Wait, I want to talk a bit more. I called out, but he was already out of sight, and my voice didn't reach him. I quickly stood up to chase after him. but the movement was halted by a staff member with a concerned look on their face. "I'm sorry, but can I have the check, please?" the staff said, handing me the check. The only thing that came to mind was, seriously. Recently, I've been having more issues with my in-laws, and I was thinking about keeping a distance from them in my heart. But with so many troubles in succession, I felt both helpless and angry. After sharing everything with my husband, we decided to ignore any contact from his brothers. If they needed anything, they would have to communicate through my husband, and after that, I decided to ignore the several messages I received. But it didn't last long, as there was a 60th birthday celebration for my in-laws, and I had to attend this heartwarming event. They have always been kind to me, and they weren't just important as my husband's parents, but also dear to me. Wow, it's spacious, and that detached room over there is lovely too. I heard my mother-in-law exclaim. Seeing her enjoy herself lifted my spirits. If I can choose a place for the celebration, I'd like this house. What the in-laws wanted was a traditional house that I recently inherited from my grandparents. That house is actually a 230-year-old traditional house that was relocated. It used to be lively when my grandparents lived there, I explained with nostalgia. My father-in-law also added, reminiscing, the first time I met my wife was also in such a traditional place. It turns out they met while touring old houses, enjoying tea together, and realized they were the same age. In fact, before my grandparents moved to a nursing home, this house was used as a traditional restaurant. Regretting not inviting them sooner, my mother-in-law comforted me, saying today was special and the place was perfect. At those words, my heart warmed a little. Seeing the house and garden, they were wandering around 2 hours before the party started. In the midst of this, the eldest brother came in noisily, showing slight dissatisfaction. "Huh? What's this? Only Steve is here to greet us, and we're having lunch in such a quiet place? Surprising," the eldest brother exclaimed. Steve replied with a warm smile, "This is a request from Mom and Dad. They wanted to spend family time in a cozy environment. And this lunch is a special version from a famous local shop." When Steve said that, I remembered how I had been looking forward to that lunch also. The second brother interjected with a concerned face. "Even if it's special, lunch is still a lunch. Shouldn't we have ordered more luxurious food in such a beautiful house? Aren't you being too frugal, Steve?" While it must have been expensive to rent the house, today was for my parents-in-laws, and I felt we should respect their wishes. Originally, I still haven't been reimbursed for the taxi fare when I was given just a small salmon, nor for the expenses at the shop where I had a commotion with his ex-girlfriend. But even after that, my eldest and second brothers continued to nag at Steve and me, occasionally cracking jokes. Through it all, Steve always maintained his usual calm and gentle demeanor. I really loved that about him. Amidst such a pleasant conversation, my eldest brother smiled and said, "Hey, I just thought of a good idea." I became a bit worried. His good ideas sometimes took unexpected turns. Steve looked at me with a slightly tense expression, possibly feeling the same way. After that, the eldest whispered something to the second brother, and they both started laughing with a gleam in their eyes. "We're family, right? There's a way to make this special day even more special," the eldest said with a smile. Suddenly, the eldest brother looked at my husband and started speaking. "Has this place already closed down?" My husband replied gently with a surprised look. "Yes, it has." Then, my brothers-in-law approached us with excitement. "Wait a second, are you implying that you're the breadwinner here?" the second brother said with a smile, and the eldest exclaimed, "Owning such a wonderful place and a big house. You're really lucky." "Wait, are you misunderstanding something?" My husband tilted his head in confusion, but my brothers-in-law continued. "You can't keep this wonderful place all to yourself," the second brother said in a playful tone. "Share it with us, aren't we brothers?" the eldest chimed in, grinning. I understood their intentions and came up with a little idea. "What do you want?" I asked with a laugh. They looked at me, eyes shining, probably thinking of our family assets. But I couldn't simply comply with their demands. After all, this house was inherited by me, and it's not my husband's. My husband has always been supportive, especially when inheritance matters arose. He often reminded me, if there's any problem, consult me. Remember to manage our prenuptial agreement properly. Thinking about his warmth and sincerity made my brother-in-law's attitude even more displeasing. The second eldest brother said, "This place is in an absolutely perfect location, isn't it? Just a short walk and you can get anything you need. And this house, isn't it a bit too big?" In an exaggerated manner. To which the eldest responded, "Maybe we should let our younger brother's family live here. If you don't agree, we don't have to meet anymore." Taking a deep breath, I calmly replied, "It's fine." They were stunned. "Really? Can our younger brothers live here?" I answered with a smile, "Yes, of course. Not just for the second eldest brother, but you are also very welcome. I hope you all find the house to your liking. Here are the keys." When I handed over the keys, the expressions of the brothers-in-law instantly brightened up. "Really? We're so grateful." "Yes. Christina, thank you so much." The two of them happily wandered around the house, looking around. On the other hand, my husband spoke with a slightly worried look on his face. "Are you sure about this?" I took his hand. "Don't worry, I've thought it all through." A few days later, while relaxing in the living room, our intercom rang urgently. Opening the door, my brothers-in-law were visibly panicked. "Why is this happening?" "We didn't know the house was going to be demolished." They waved a notice of demolition in their hands. "Oh, that was planned," I calmly replied. They questioned in shock. "Why?" I explained. "A new apartment building is set to be constructed there. To do so, the existing house must be demolished." They stared at me, stunned. I further revealed the high-end restaurant has received relocation offers due to its prime location. I kept it unchanged because of a 60th birthday celebration, but today marks a significant change for it. They exchanged anxious glances. Noticing their surprise, I felt a bit satisfied. "Is the house really going to be demolished? Are you serious?" Smiling, I continued, "Yes, I am. So, you might want to retrieve any valuables soon. Everything inside will be discarded." Hearing this, their eyes widened even more. Observing the heavy machinery outside, I added, "Considering how active the construction site is, work might start soon. So, if you have valuable items, it's safer to take them now." After a moment of silence, they started discussing hastily. "Is this real? We gonna hurry?" Watching their frantic departure, I turned to my husband. "It seems they really didn't know," I remarked. My husband said with a warm smile, "Based on our previous experiences, I suppose my parents and I thought it would be good for them to get a little shock. But we might have inconvenienced the workers." It's true that I handed over the house keys to my brothers-in-law. I had properly informed both my husband and his parents about my intention and their plans to move into the new house. Of course, I also let them know that the house had been successfully purchased and the details of the handover date. It was up to them to decide if they will tell the brothers the truth or not. But it seems no one told them in the end. "Don't worry about the workers. I've already discussed it with them," he assured me. I had a feeling this might happen, so I had already informed the contractor. "I hope you regret it." We talked lightly and then went to sleep. The next day, "I can't believe it's come to this." Summoned to my in-laws' house, we were confronted by my mother-in-law's mitterings and my downtrodden brothers-in-law. "Even if the contractor didn't let you in, what were you thinking? Trying to sneak into the house in the middle of the night?" Well, you see, apparently after being turned away by the contractor during the day, they tried to sneak into the house at night to get their valuable items. A neighbor found this suspicious and called the police. "You not only failed to retrieve your belongings but also got stopped by the police," my husband said incredulously. But, well, while the brothers-in-law seemed eager to explain, their parents just sighed. "You both should apologize." My husband calmly offered advice to them, who didn't seem inclined to apologize. However, the eldest brother retorted with a hint of anger. "What? But this is all because of Christina. And the second brother chimed in, I thought you were kind, but I was deceived. I was wondering why you gave me the keys so easily, but doing this to the house is quite a shock. Facing their sudden complaints, all I could do was smile. Brothers, it seems there's a misunderstanding. Actually, both the land and the house were inherited by me. We had discussed this even before my marriage to Steve. I've always maintained that what's mine is mine, and we even signed a contract on it. So, it's not your place to intervene. Really? Wait, a contract? While the brothers-in-law looked shocked, I decided to explain calmly. Since my grandparents' time, there have been various considerations about what to do with the land, but they always wanted to keep it as it is. They did tell me, however, that I could sell it in the future, and I consulted a trusted contractor about this. So, it's none of your business. But we're family. Why do you think it's not our concern? Before answering, I delved deep into my memories. I started thinking seriously about marriage about 3 years ago. My dad raised me with great care on his own because my mom passed away shortly after giving birth to me. Dad and I were close, like best friends, and we spent many times together, camping in summer, ski trips in winter. But those happy days ended suddenly when my father unexpectedly fell ill and passed away. I was overwhelmed, filled with regret for not being able to do anything for him and the emptiness of the room where his presence once was. During that time, my husband stood by me, supporting me during my father's funeral and subsequent memorial services. When I couldn't move from the room I shared with my father, my husband would make me homemade soup and listen to my stories about my father all night. I really want to marry you. You've always been on my side, always thinking about me. If you have something you don't like about me, I'll fix it. I told him during my 5th proposal. Then he looked troubled and said, I want to marry you, but there are issues with my family. I don't want to burden you with them. I truly love you, Steve, and I don't care about any problematic family. I reassured him, and we decided to get married. I absolutely have no regrets. I wanted to fulfill my grandparents' wishes, and I am satisfied that I did so. But Steve's brothers were a different story. I can't believe how presumptuous your brothers are. I can't forgive them anymore. They will pay for everything they've done. I declared firmly. Taxi fares, expensive food bills, compensation for slapping me, the cost of our tea at the cafe, utilities for the house, the expenses from calling the police, and everything else. Steve added, and his brothers turned pale. What? Even for that? That's unbelievable. Then, an even bigger surprise awaited them. Their father announced, You're disowned. What? Please don't, Dad. Afterwards, the brothers were kicked out of their parents' house. Their problematic behavior became known even to distant relatives. Having lost their place, the brothers were abandoned by their girlfriends and families. Now, they seem to live quietly in a small apartment. Is this our new home? Can we really live here without any issues? In a luxurious high-rise condo, we became neighbors with Steve's parents. Of course, as a condition for relinquishing the land, we agreed to buy this floor in the building. I'm happy that we can live close like this. Parts of my grandparents' old house, like its pillars, were incorporated into our new home. We took new photos as a family. Let's display this photo alongside the old ones. The photo captured the happy faces of my family. From now on, I thought to myself, I'll cherish the smiles of this family.